Hop in. It's
Okay.
so good to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
You bet. So let's begin our journey with this. Five
Okay.
years ago, this pandemic changed everything about our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced and changed the way that you live life today?
The interesting thing about the pandemic is that I was already working from home.
Yeah.
I've been working from home for years. And so the thing that changed the most is that now there were other people at home. Like I was fine. I just had little eyeballs at my office door, right? Mom, can I have lunch? And we got to run. Like, it's just like, hmm. I was used to having the space to myself.
Huh?
That's on the inside. On the outside, in terms of how the world was changing. So I did a TED talk in 2019 in December, and then the world changed. So, like, literally right before everything shut down. I thought that that was going to be my taking off point. I did this TED talk. I was getting booked for some more speaking, and then people froze. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to do virtual speaking and virtual engagements, and so it kind of plateaued and went down from there. But on the outside, one of the things that I noticed is that you have this dichotomy of people who realize that they actually need people. Your UPS and your your Amazon were your best friend,
Yeah.
right? Your drivers, the post office, the grocery stores, like the fact that all of this whole toilet paper thing, we're still not sure. I think researchers should really study that
Yeah.
in terms of why everybody freaked out and got toilet paper. But like the people that showed up at the grocery stores, the people that showed up at the pharmacies because we needed our medication. So I think that empathy, which is one thing that I teach, empathy-based leadership, empathy sort of went on the rise because, oh my gosh, this is really hard for all of us. So how do we be kinder to each other? You saw calls, for example, work calls, Zoom calls. People had pets and babies that now the rest of the workplace had to accommodate for because everybody had their pets and their babies at home, right? So I think that that was a good thing and that we expanded empathy, but I think a little stir craziness happened. And so I thought that it was interesting how you saw this shoot up in empathy, which is really great, but also this like irritation with mankind itself that
Yeah.
also happened at the same time.
That's such an interesting perspective you put out because there's a myriad of ways that this question can be answered, but I've never heard anybody talk about the level of us kind of shining a light on our lives. Because I remember
Mhm.
during that time period, I had to figure out what I was going to do, and I have a jazz radio show. So I
Mhm.
decided I'm going to do more interviews than ever. I'm going to reach out to the musicians, and a lot of the musicians, whether they were legendary or whatnot, they're going to be at home. So there's a chance that there's going to be some of these that are going to be able to talk on a break. But I had my kids with me, and I have my stepdaughter who's 13 going on 30 at the time, and my
Yeah.
son who's on the autism spectrum. So I would play the interviews on speaker, and to this day they still talk about those little vignettes. Like there was one jazz pianist from New York that completely just literally sold everything and went to Costa Rica to become a surfer. So
Oh
he's
wow.
down there, and you hear the ocean in the background, the macaws chirping, and all of this action going on. And she still references that to this day. But that's the thing. We got this inside view. And I remember people would apologize for sounds during the interview. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the least of our concern. If your cat's
Right.
meowing and the coffee pot's gurgling or there's something going on, we're fine. This is no
Yeah.
problem. In fact, there was a guy in Spain at one point that apologized because all of the people on the balconies were hitting the pots and pans for the medical people. I was like, don't apologize. Put your phone out there. I want better audio, you
I
know?
thought that was a really interesting, almost Lord of the Flies like reaction to how we were having to live.
True.
Um, my father is was a jazz musician. He passed away this year, but he um, during the pandemic, I remember he lived in an assisted living facility and he was a saxophonist. And
Yeah.
so because he couldn't get out, he was playing his saxophone. So he had some fans, right?
Uh-huh.
And he had others who's like, oh my God, if this guy doesn't stop playing this sax
Yep.
day and night. But I mean, he was a true musician. And so he had his keyboard and his saxophone and he was always playing.
Wow.
So during the pandemic, he couldn't get outside. So he was playing on it
Yeah.
on the inside. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking with musicians, especially in New York. Probably for the first few weeks, it was cute that they were playing, but then they were
Right.
like, stop. You got to stop playing, you
Right,
know?
right.
So
or harmonize or coordinate or do something,
that's
right?
it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
some like cartoon scenario. So
Right.
there's so much that you're doing. You're an award-winning consultant. You're a speaker. You're a coach. But if I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds right now, and it's career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living, how do you summarize and explain that?
Um, I think that's a 12-year-old. So uh I make things fun. I think that's that. So I'm an experienced designer, right? So it doesn't matter if you're doing if you have a website that needs some user design research to figure out what makes sense. You ever get on a computer or get on the website, you're like, why did they put this button here?
Uh-huh.
Right? So I'm the one that goes and looks and say, hey, we probably shouldn't put that button there. If you're on Teams and they're like, why is the share button next to the leave button? You know what happens to me all the time? I leave the daggone Teams thing instead of
Yeah.
sharing my screen because it's not designed right, right? I'm that person that goes everywhere and like notices how things are designed and how what the workflow looks like. Years ago, for fourth graders, when my daughter was in fourth grade, I did I think it's called like the Business Leaders of America. Yeah, Young Business Leaders of America, right? So you go in and talk to these kids. So I have 4 days of showing them how to create businesses, doing things that were fun. And so that was one of the most challenging rooms, getting a bunch of fourth graders, right?
Oh
To
yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But what we left with, we had them making up commercials and we had them thinking about their supply chain and all sorts of things. But we did it in a fun way that was that fourth graders would want to lean into. But I do that for adults. I will go into an IT group and their job is to create dashboards for a medical team, right? But they don't understand a medical team because they're not doctors. So they're making bells and whistles. I call them I lovingly call our tech people the bebop boopers. So they're bebop booping their way through all of these bells and whistles that the medical team couldn't care less about.
Yep.
You're sitting these alerts, and the doctors are like, these alerts are bothering me. So what I do is I do translation, right? So
Gotcha.
I translate what is needed to what is wanted to what is desired, mix it all up and make it fun. And then hopefully we get a product, a program, or a service that works for the end user or the human at the end of it, which is what's called human-centered design.
Man, we need more of that life because what you're doing is you're maximizing or you're taking away all that waste because they're spending all kinds of time to beautify and put these things together that no one cares about.
That nobody cares about.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
but if you can rearrange that to put the energy into what they do care about, it's going to make everybody better.
and it's also a matter of helping people not to feel like they wasted. Everyone wants to feel useful,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
So if you have your tech people and they live for the building of the bells and whistles, you sort of redistribute their energy. Like it's great that you were using this energy to build the stuff that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
Sorry, nobody wants it.
Uh-huh.
But how about now we use your energy to build something they actually want? And then there's something that happens when you deliver something that people like, right? Gratitude is the second part of the Momentology method, which is my intentional framework. Gratitude is really powerful. When you get a gift, it's something about, oh my God, someone was thinking about me, or oh, you see me, especially if you
Hmm.
get a gift that I've been wanting this for so long. If you give a doctor who is tired and has all these things going on and you give him the application that makes his life easier,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's so thankful,
Oh yeah.
right? And so showing people that there are moments that we can create where we're creating these gratitude exchanges, where we're creating these moments where your work is needed and appreciated, they'll do more of it. They'll be less likely to do rework, right? They'll do it right the first time. So there's a lot of underlying pieces to actually providing great service.
So when you were in that position at 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to grow up and become?
Um,
Huh.
or I wanted to be Wonder Woman.
Okay. Awesome.
My mom got me these a long time ago, and I wear them at meetings sometimes because
Yeah.
it's going to be serious when I put on the cuffs.
Oh
I
yeah.
wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted to be Wonder Woman, so I could save people. Apparently, yeah, I've always wanted to be in service. I've always wanted to make people happy. I always wanted to get people to that aha, like I can do it. And to this day, I call myself a facilitator of discovery because like that aha moment is just everything for me.
A lot of who we are is developed by the time we're 3 years old. Take me back to your beginnings. What were these foundational elements that you either saw or that were imbued on you in your youth that made you be this person that helps people, that has empathy, that shows people the right way? How did that happen?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We are always who we always were, right? We just may not have discovered it fully. I knew from a very, very young age that one, I wanted to help people, right? My mother has it written in my baby book that I said I was like 3, that I wanted to be a doctor, a Wonder Woman. I also loved languages, and to this day, it's one of my favorite hobbies is to learn different languages. I can say thank you in almost 60 languages. It is my absolute favorite thing to do. Anytime I meet someone who speaks a different language, I ask them how to say thank you. Gratitude is my favorite human emotion. And again, back to what we were saying about that moment of exchange. And translation is really, really powerful. So my grandmother used to tease me. She thought I was going to work for the UN since I was little, because I just really loved getting to know people, figure out, and there's something about language, right? Because with language comes the country of origin, it comes the food that they eat, it comes the way that they look at the world. So you learn so much about someone just from starting with how do you say thank you. And so it's never failed me ever since. For years throughout my career in different positions and so forth, I've traveled internationally as well, but I've always loved to just figure out what's going on in people's heads. But I'm also a psychologist, an international psychologist. So I think that part came naturally. Like I couldn't be anything else but what I'm doing right now, which is thinking about how people think about things and how we solve things in our own spaces.
So, who's been your hero? Who's been the inspirational force for your life?
My grandmother.
Yeah.
My grandmother is fantastic. She'll be 94 this year. And she's somewhat of an introvert. She's the most brilliant person I've ever met. Straight A's in physics. Like she just does things and knows things that are just amazing to me, but she's very generally quiet, unless she's around family, and then she kind of kicks up a little bit. But she worked for the DoD for most of her adult life. She retired from the DoD. She was a secretary. She could have been running the thing, right? Like I think she thought that there were certain positions for certain people in certain places, and she just did her role and raised her family and took care of all of us for years and years and years. And she is the person that everybody in my family goes to. So yeah, that's kind of my shero.
So you had mentioned the TEDx talk that you had in 2019. When
Mm-hmm.
you think about all the speeches that you've witnessed in your life, what was the best speech you ever saw?
The best speech. I really liked Colin Powell's TED Talk. Um, you got to see a different side of someone who's so such a heavy figure in American culture, and just to hear him talking about how he grew up in New York, it's just I just thought it was one of those moments when I realized uh, that there are so many different sides to people, and I really appreciated him being really like open and vulnerable in his talk.
He is still to this day in our modern era one of the only political figures that literally did not waver. Like whenever he went up in front of Congress and was like, I didn't see any weapons of mass destruction. And they were telling him, you
Right.
better act like you saw some. He couldn't do it, you know?
Yes.
There was actually somebody I interviewed months ago that was kind of in that role of being by the chief of staff, and they'd been in the Oval Office. And I was like, wash away all of these things that you have on your resume. Who did you look forward to seeing? And he said it was Colin Powell. Because we all have these work relationships, right? And we like
Right.
running into, there's people that I run into that I absolutely love. And it's usually the janitors, it's usually the maintenance people. Those are the real ones. Those are
Right.
the eyes and ears of the institution. But he said Colin, and I've heard that before from others. Like when he was in DC, that was the person that people love running into.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I've never met him, but if and I would not necessarily pick a political figure if you
Yeah.
said who do you want to meet.
Uh huh.
There are too many political figures that I would say, but Colin Powell was definitely before he passed. I there were a couple of times that he had done some signings and things, and I missed two of them. There was one. My husband's a Navy vet, and so we spent a lot of time on the bases, and Buzz Aldrin was there and a bunch of other people, and I missed Colin. I was so upset. Colin Powell was, I think he was at Andrews, and I missed him. So I was really, really looking forward to meeting him.
So you've obviously been very successful in your career, highly motivated. What is that that gets you up when that alarm clock goes off in the morning? What has been the consistent motivator for you to change lives, to do things at a high level, take care of your soul? What is that energy for you every day?
Um, so last year, for my psychology rotation for my PhD, I was in South Africa. And it was my second time in South Africa. I've been in South Africa professionally for my work when I used to be the policy development officer at NIH, which was one of my favorite jobs in the world. But this time was for my studies, and so I got to talk to women from all over the region. So I was in South Africa, but I talked to women that were transplants from Zimbabwe and different places. My research is on reducing stress and overwhelm in women, and so just talking to them about what life is like, what obligation is like, and the difference between joy and obligation, which is something that I'm studying as well. One of the things I went to several places. I worked with nonprofits. We went to this wonderful nonprofit that's called the Teddy Bear Clinic, and they help children who have been abused face their abusers. So they have to like go to court. They have a mock court where they
Wow.
put on the costumes and they make it more palatable for the child. I just was just enthralled by their care. And so one of the things that I realized in going on this trip was that this is who I've always been my entire life. And I got the chance to really dig into that and unfold it a little bit. What gets me up every day is that there's someone somewhere who just needs to know that they can do it. Like they don't, whatever their circumstance is, and there's a myriad of reasons why people have low self-esteem. There's a myriad of reasons why people think that they can't achieve a particular goal. But my thing that gets me up is that I see things in other people that they don't see, and it only takes a method. I can help them do it themselves. Like nobody wants to be dependent on anybody else. And I don't consider myself a consultant that has to be there all the time. I consider myself a person that can show you a way that you can think about things differently, and then it's done. Once you can't unsee your greatness. Once you see that you're able to do something, if you can do one thing, you can do many things. And so that's the thing that I think every day I'm looking to find, and unfortunately it's not hard to find people who need inspiration, but I'm looking to be a part of these journeys where people are just doing fantastic things.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run to that young version of you, destined to become Wonder Woman, and you have a book in your hands, and it's a coffee table book, and you hand it over and say, "This is your life so far." Would that young version of you believe that you've lived this life up to this point?
I think she'd be hopeful. I think life has ebbs and flows. We have these valleys and mountains. I think there was a time when I thought I could do everything, and then there was a time where I thought I couldn't get out of bed, right? And so I think it just depends on what day that I ran into the former me. And there's some days I thought this, of course, absolutely. What do you mean? Is that all? Is there more? And then there's probably some days where I would take some convincing. So it just really depends.
So, of everything that you've accomplished and evolved to and become in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Mm, my kids are my world.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we, the young people that we hope to inspire externally are sort of reflections of what we hope to do for our own family, our own children. Um, and a lot of times we try to shield our children from the harshness of the world, and we want them to have more than we had. We want them to do better than we did, and I think that sometimes that is somewhat of a crutch. And so I've been very conscious. My husband and I have made sure that they know that they have the potential to do anything in the world, but they also know that the world is not very kind, right? And so we don't try to shield them from that. We just try to help them build the muscle where they can take on whatever's coming their way. And so I'm very proud that my children have taken on their own respective lanes in ways that are important to them, and I try my best if it's still try not to interfere with their unfolding of the world, because it's theirs, not mine. It's hard though, as a parent. It's really hard. Like you see the wall and you want to
Yeah.
like turn,
Yeah. I know.
right?
I know.
But sometimes they got to bump into the wall, right?
That's it. Yeah. And I think about how weird the world is, specifically in regards to political things from
Mm-hmm.
America. And if there is ever any reason that people should go ahead and keep fighting, these kids need to have some level of knowing that we can overcome and be kind and be compassionate, because we're not
Right.
seeing that. I mean, we're seeing the anterior to a lot of things that is typically seen as political. So we're the ones that are going to have to be the examples, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to hold steady. Um, so let me ask you this. You had mentioned South Africa a few times. You had mentioned traveling internationally. What was one of the most unexpectedly magical places that you traveled to in your life?
Magical places.
You just didn't expect it was going to be like that.
Well, I would say so. South Africa, the first time I went to South Africa, I went to Durban. The second time I went to Johannesburg, and so one is further southeast to the coast, and the other. So the Durban trip, I literally was on the Indian Ocean, which was really interesting. I don't do swimming, but I did. I did go down to the beach, take my shoes off so that I can touch the Indian Ocean, so I can say I've had my feet in the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. But I was not going to go in the water. One of the interesting things, the second time I went to Durban and I went to the elephant sanctuary, and I love elephants, love elephants, and I've loved them from afar. I don't particularly like zoos, just because I feel like those are beautiful creatures, and these little enclosures, it just kind
Yeah.
of makes me sad. But to see giraffe and wildebeest like walking around, just
Yeah. Uh-huh.
having a good old time, and to walk with the elephants was one of the most phenomenal things I've ever done. And of course, it's very um, regulated, and they have these guides and they do things, but it still doesn't take away from the beauty of the animal. So I really enjoyed being with the elephants.
I always wondered what that would be like to be in the wild to see that happen naturally. And Kansas
Mm.
City has a really good elephant and kind of African exhibit with all the animals. And the interesting thing about the elephant, because my grandma Rose, she was lived in New York. She loved elephants. Had they were everywhere,
That's
statues and
that's
pictures
me.
and
I have elephants everywhere in the house.
yeah, they're every. She loved them, but I think elephants are kind of like cats. They really enjoy being around humans. They kind of picked us. There's a very symbiotic relationship between
they
human and
they
animal.
they seem to. It's hard to tell, honestly, right? Because if you think about it, there aren't really a lot of natural spaces for them anymore. Humans have encroached on it, right? So
Yeah,
even in the sanctuary is where they've saved elephants from various different things going on, but it's a babysitting space, right? So
yeah,
like they have these enclosures. So I think they try to give them the freest life that they can under the circumstances, but I don't think that we're ever going to see um outside of like Jane, what's her name, Goodall, sitting with the gorillas and so forth.
yeah,
But they even still, I think that what that saying, when a tree falls in a forest doesn't make a sound. It's like what we see in sort of the interaction in animals is cannot be it cannot be fully understood, because we've already touched them. We've
yep.
already, to give, like, we're feeding them by hand where they would go get their food. So there's
Yeah,
just so much. You're seeing some beauty 100%, but I don't think we ever really see them,
I get it.
because it's just an unnatural existence that we force them to be in. So that's why I don't like zoos. I did
Yeah,
the sanctuary. I understand they're doing wonderful things, so I was there, but it was really beautiful.
yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this: everyone has a perception of you, family, friends,
Mm.
clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am definitely. So I tried to run from this from a really long time. I come from a family of teachers. You can't throw a stick and not hit a teacher in my family. And I was like, I'm not going to be a teacher, but I am. I am. I cannot run from it. Throughout my career, I was writing the SOPs. I was doing the training. Like, that's just who I am. Um, so I believe I'm someone who just loves to share, and not so much advice, because I don't like to tell people what to do, which is a wonderful thing about coaching. Like, a lot of people come to me and they think, like, well, they think less of themselves, that they need a coach and someone to tell them what to do. I'm not telling you what to do.
Yep.
I'm holding a mirror up so you can see all the things that you need to do, and you do it or you don't do it.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't I fully believe that we should never take accountability and responsibility away from people. You are accountable and responsible for your entire life, but I may have a perception or a mirror that shows you an insight that you didn't see before. And so I think that's who I am. I'm someone who is highly insightful. I see connections that other people don't see, and then I share them and
So
let you
for
do with it what you will.
exactly. So for anyone that wants to look in that mirror, they have questions, they want to hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
They can go to momentuslifenow.com and set up an appointment. And that's Momentous lifenow.com.
And I will put links in the show notes for that.
Yes.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful 2026.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I developed an assessment. It's like sort of like a personality assessment.
Yes.
And I'd love if any of your listeners who are just wondering what kind of leader they are, it's called the Servant Leader Finder, and it's servantleadertype.com. So
Okay.
servantleadertype.com, and I'll give you the URL, but I'd love
Perfect.
if you're interested, it's a free assessment.
I'm glad you added that. I will make sure to put that in the show notes. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Great to
Thank
meet
you.
you. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You